our modern look at psychology, mental health, almost tends to look at behavior modification, and that's kind of it. Let's change our behaviors and stop there. And there's merit in our behavior, sure. But why are we behaving in the way that we are? Is it just for my own glorification, just for me to feel better? Or is it to glorify God? Is it to be a better steward of his creation? And when we lose that faith component, it can still be helpful, but it tends to be very shallow. So with people that are Christians, I tell them you don't necessarily have to go to a quote Christian counselor, but it is important to incorporate your faith into that journey, because we can't really rely on the clinician to necessarily do that for you.
Hello, and welcome to the Encourager Podcast, where we have encouraging conversations to help you joyfully harmonize your home and work life. I'm your host, Rebecca Scott. I'm a wife, mother, designer, coach, and author. I'm here to help encourage and empower you to confidently make decisions that work for you and your stage of life, whatever that might be. Are you ready to take your life to the next, more organized level? Are you tired of feeling overwhelmed and overstressed over all the roles you have? The Encourager Academy can help you take back the joy in these roles and help you harmonize both home and work life. The Encourager Academy online courses and coaching programs are designed to help you overcome your biggest obstacles in getting it all done by helping you navigate 5 systems: me, food, family, work, and home. Whether you're looking to improve your food system, grow your career, or strengthen your relationships with your family, we have the tools and resources you need to succeed within our academy. I will guide you through each system with guided worksheets, lifetime access to rewatch the videos, and the encouragement you need to fulfill your roles. And with our flexible online platform, you can learn at your own pace on your own schedule. Here are just a few of the benefits of joining the Encourager Academy: lifetime access to rewatch the videos and the guided worksheets, proven strategies and techniques for overcoming overwhelm and general fatigue with all your roles, practical tools and resources for improving all your systems no matter how much or how complicated, and flexibility to learn and grow on your own schedule from anywhere. So why wait? Join the Encourager Academy today and start harmonizing both work and home life. Use the code WeGotThis to get $50 off. Visit our website at theencourageracademy.com to learn more and enroll. Hello, encouragers. Okay, I have a special guest on today that's going to talk to us a little bit about the new era of mental health. And I do like that we've been talking about this much more frequently than we ever did. Even pre-2020, we were starting to talk about it. But then post-2020, everybody's concerned about our mental health because we were all so just thrown out of our norm. And so I like to bring guests on who can talk to the Christian side of things. And my guest today is Johnny Sanders. Welcome, Johnny.
Hey, it's great to be here.
And the other part is, you guys, the website is truthandgracecounseling.com. And here's why I like that. Sometimes you need to hear the truth, but sometimes you also need the grace with it. You know how you have people in your life who will tell you the truth, but they're not graceful about it? Or the people that are super graceful but can't tell you the truth? Okay, so this one marries the two of them together. So welcome, Johnny. We can't wait to have you as our guest today.
Yeah, I'm super excited to be here.
Okay, my first question for you, because I led up to this, is how does faith impact our mental health? So as we're going through all the examples of how to take care of yourself, which I talk about frequently, in my systems, and it's being fed in our content nonstop. Like if you ever search anything about mental health, then it just, keeps feeding you all these different things. But I get a little bit leery of, how do I know that the ones that are good resources are Christian based or would line up with what my faith is?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And kind of going back into my name, it's obviously comes from scripture of both truth and grace. That the way I was trained in my psychology in my undergrad, I went to a Christian university, was that all truth is God's truth. So whether we're talking about gravity, if we're talking about theology, it doesn't really matter. If it's truthful, then that is that is God's. So I like to think of psychological truth in that way. But our modern look at psychology, mental health, almost tends to look at behavior modification, and that's kind of it. Let's change our behaviors and stop there. And there's merit in our behavior, sure. But why are we behaving in the way that we are? Is it just for my own glorification, just for me to feel better, or is it to glorify God? Is it to be a better steward of His creation? And when we lose that faith component, it could still be helpful, but it tends to be very shallow. So with people that are Christians, I tell them you don't necessarily have to go to a quote Christian counselor, but it is important to incorporate your faith into that journey, because we can't really rely on the clinician to necessarily do that for you.
Okay, so how do we go about asking? Because they seem to be tender questions. It's like, are you a Christian? And then it just happened to me this week. I'll be a little vague on the details because I just need to be vague. But it was like, I asked like, well, are you a Christian? Because it was so all over the board that I couldn't put a pin in. Like you said, like, wait, I need to know where you are getting your knowledge and what your background is for us to be able to pursue this thing. And so how do we go about asking our counselors, or when we're seeking out, we do need some help with mental health? How do we go about asking those questions?
One of the first ways that I recommend this is by finding some resources that can narrow that down maybe a little bit quicker, especially if you are not adverse to doing like telehealth. There's some pros and cons. There's as it goes to telehealth, but one pro is you can specialize a whole lot easier, because some of the distance isn't quite as big of a deal. So that's one thing you can do. Is I always recommend people that come to me that are in a state that I'm not licensed in. One of my first go-tos is to recommend the Focus on the Family has a counselor database that I'm a part of. And I don't know those people on there, but I know what you have to do to get on there and some of the things you have to affirm and things like that. So that might be one place to start, is by looking at a place like Focus on the Family. But if you don't have that, or you find yourself in with the counselor, you can ask them their opinions on things, just point blank. They do work for you, not the other way around. But also being open with just what is important to you. Like, me going to church is important to me. My faith is important to me. And see how they handle that. Do they steer me away from that? Do they encourage me to talk more about it? Don't be afraid to mention that to the clinician. And if you don't feel comfortable, to go find somebody else.
I do like that permission you gave there too. So, we should affirm for ourselves what are things that I want to make sure stay important to me, whether that's going to church or prayer life or whatever. But also, I think in the world of mental health, it used to be you stayed with a counselor for many, 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 many years, and you didn't tell anybody. So there was that. And now I think we still have that. We need counseling and we need therapy in our life. And we still think we need to save the same person, but we're not seeing results. So can you tell us a little bit about how do we know when it's time to change counselors, or when it's time to challenge them back, give them some of that truth and grace? It's like, I didn't like this advice, but I still find this stuff valid. How do we walk through that? And how often should we switch counselors?
Great questions. And the first thing I would say is you, and along with your work with your counselor, need to evaluate what are my goals? What am I trying to get out of this? If it's just to feel better, I mean, there's something in that, but even with that, what does feel better? What does that even mean? So try to get specific of what am I trying to gain out of this? What is missing in my life that I'm trying to get better? And one, being open and talking about that with the counselor. And if you don't feel comfortable there and it's just like, I don't feel like we're going anywhere, it goes back to those goals. I want to get here and I'm not here. So that's when we go somewhere else, or even taking a break from counseling for a little while, until you find somebody that you feel more comfortable with. But yeah, you don't have to be with the same counselor for years on end. You can switch, even if you just feel like it. I mean, there's no like laws set that you have to be with the same person forever.
Can you give us some examples of goals that you would come to a counseling event with, or a counseling event, sorry, a counseling session? Like what would we say would be some goals? Give us some examples.
Sure. One example is if we're going especially on the just on the strictly faith component. I feel that I'm feeling in this dry season of my spiritual life, so I want to read my Bible more frequently. That's a very concrete one that we could get to. Maybe if it's more on the just emotional level, I'm feeling depressed, and I used to exercise. I used to do these things that I enjoy, and I'm not doing them anymore. So my goal is to be in the gym for 3 days a week, and some counselors might even give you an assessment that kind of tracks your depression score, and we might say we're going to go from a 20 on this scale down to a 15 in 3 months or something. So trying to get to a somewhat of a concrete specific number or steps that I want to get into. We want to be able to measure it in some way, shape, or form.
Okay. I love that because, well, first of all, we all know I love goals and I love resources, but I do like that there's permission to say, like, here is my goal, and not to be an overachiever or accomplisher, but there is purpose to the tacking. And you probably won't take away, I would imagine, every single time, like, this is my homework for this time, but there'll definitely be things to think over, I would assume.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. So then it brings me to this question. Okay. Because mental health is here to stay, and we're all going to talk about it a little bit more than we ever used to. I get a little bit nervous that this is a field that you actually do need to check credentials, and you do need to check what they have degrees in and certifications in. So what are some things that we should look for when we are pursuing a counselor or a therapist? What are some of the things that we should note on their website or even on their social media feeds to know that, okay, they are certified or whatever the language might be?
So you're going to have several different types of certifications, things like that out there. I'll point with two big differences that you'll hear people talk about being a coach or something like that, and that is a different category. I'm not inherently against that. In fact, I do something sort of similar to it. I don't call myself that, but through my podcast, so where I could be a little bit more upfront of basically giving advice. Here's what you should do. I call it more consulting than coaching, but that's a different sphere. There's a time and a place for that, but that's not somebody that's been trained and gotten licensed and things like that. So know that language. But from there, you're going to have several different categories of training, and most of them are not better than the other. They're just different. You're going to have some of this depends on the state as well. I'm what's called an LPC, a licensed professional counselor. And that means in order to get that, you don't have to worry as much of their like formal education. You have to have a master's in order to get that certification. So you can check where they got it from, I guess, but like you don't have to worry that you have to have that in order to be licensed professional counselor. Same thing for licensed clinical social worker, LCSW, and also licensed marriage and family therapist, LMFT. Those are all the same level. It's just your training's a little bit different, your focus a little bit different, but all master's level. Then this is where I see a lot of confusion, and I can understand. A step above is a psychologist. So they are a doctor in the sense of like, I have gotten that doctorate level of education. So similar types of things as to what those other three categories I used, but that step higher. They just have a higher training, probably going to cost more money, and they can do more testing and things like that than some of the master's level. What's different, though, and I see this all the time, is it's different from a psychologist who's more clinical type of things and a psychiatrist. The psychiatrist is going to be an actual doctor. And they went to med school and all of that, and they're going to prescribe medications, things of that nature. So it's important to know those differences, because if you go to that psychiatrist and you're hoping to get all this counseling, you're going to be disappointed because you're probably not going to get much. You're just going to get some pills or something. But really look for those certifications. And I'll add one more thing on this too, that if it just ends in those letters that I mentioned, then they're fully licensed. But it depends on the state. Some might have like an I at the end of that, and that means intern. So they've graduated, but they're under a supervisor that's still watching them, and they should disclose that. But if you're uncomfortable seeing some of that might be a little more green in the field, that's what that S or I or said. Mine was candidate. I had to put candidate out there. So that's something to look out for as well.
Hey, encouragers, are you tired of feeling overwhelmed by information overload? Do you crave clarity and purposeful progress? Less of a fire hose and more of a slow drip? Let me introduce you to the Clarity Blueprint membership community. It's a place where women just like you gather to transform their lives from chaos to clarity. We take purposeful steps each month so you can see results and not get overwhelmed. Imagine this: twice a month, you'll join a supportive group of like-minded women on a journey to make progress in smaller, more edible bites than another huge commitment of time or energy. Our sessions are designed to help you cut through the noise, set meaningful goals, and take actionable steps toward progress. Think of it like your podcast listening with additional support. You'll get access to our monthly calls, worksheets, videos, guest speakers, resources, and a fun community that's cheering you on every step of the way. Say goodbye to overwhelm and hello to purposeful progress immediately. We promise to keep it simple yet impactful and very affordable. Visit theencouragerpodcast.com, click on the tab Clarity Blueprint, and become a member today. You can join at any point, and we can't wait to see who's going to walk along this journey with us. So, what is the difference between a counselor and a therapist? Is that an education difference or an experience difference?
A lot of that is just really just vernacular difference.
Okay.
So the training as far as the LPC, professional counselor, and marriage and family therapist, the therapist and counselor doesn't really matter that much. It's basically the same thing. The big thing is just the training is more, it's kind of in the name there, a little more marriage and family heavy. I can see, and I do see couples and family members. It's not like I can't. It's just their train's a little bit more specific in that. But therapists and counselors, they're really kind of changeable terms there.
Oh, they are. Okay, so we just Americanized it and then just interchange them all the time.
Yeah.
Okay. My next question for you is, after you've explained to us the different levels and some of the words that we use for it and what to look for, does everyone need to be in counseling?
This is another pretty polarizing question in the field. In fact, there are some institutions, some training programs where they actually make the people going through to learn to be a counselor, they make them go through their own personal therapy because they feel so strongly that everybody should have that. My personal opinion is that the answer would be no, that I don't think everybody needs counseling. Now, do I think people can certainly benefit from it? Absolutely. Like you had mentioned before, of one of the positives of kind of the cultural shift is it's not this huge taboo issue. Like, you can, if you need help, go get it. Where I see the potential concern at is if we think everybody should be in counseling forever, that develops a lot of dependence on the counselor to almost figure things out for you. And that's not really the purpose of counseling. We want to help, like, make you or help you get in positions to where you can make good decisions on your own. So if you are facing an issue that's a problem, but it's like, I'm handling it pretty good, great. Go handle it well. Maybe you have a good support system that helps you through that. Great. Don't feel like you absolutely have to be in counseling for every little thing. And also, maybe I've had some people that have benefited from one session, they got it off their chest, they're good to go. Great.
Interesting.
We don't want to just live in counseling forever if we don't need to be there.
Wow, that's especially when you make a living at it. I appreciate the honesty behind it. It's like, yeah, not all the time. Okay, if you had to, and I'm putting you on the spot here, Johnny, can you give us like 2 or 3 tips when we're entering into counseling to check for or to make sure, like, I was told that if they do not give you homework, it's not a good idea. Is that true? Or like, can you give us 3 things that we should know? Like, yep, this is valid. I'm going to keep pursuing this.
Yeah. I will say this from the get go that every individual person, every client, and then also every counselor has their own flow of the way of doing things and things that you're looking for. So it's important to know that from the beginning. One of the first things as a client is, do I feel comfortable sharing what I need to come in to share? Now, there's a difference between feeling comfortable to share what I need to share and feeling comfortable forever. A counselor, and this probably leads into another one, is counselors should challenge you. Maybe it's not every session and definitely not every word where you're like scared to say something, but kind of think of like a gentle, loving, like grandparent that's going to like say, "I love you. You're here." Well, the counselor's not shouldn't say "I love you," but the grandpa in that example, very caring, very tender, but also, but you shouldn't be doing this. Having that type of relationship is really important. And then I would also say, are they this kind of goes into the same type of mindset. Do you feel heard and are your values being attacked? If I come in and dealing with my issues and the counselor's just going on about their own stuff the whole session, you don't feel heard. That's not going to help you any. And if your values are attacked, you may not have the same value system as the others, as the therapist, and that's not inherently a bad thing. But if you come in again as a Christian, I'll tell you, the majority of counselors are not Christian. So that it is definitely not a Christian.
Hold on.
Yeah,
Hold on. Really?
I will say this. I don't have the stats in front of me right now, but from a this is more on a political side than just the religious side. But most stuff that's come across is somewhere around 90% of clinicians describe themselves as left leaning, and typically left leaning tend to be less Christian. So and I would say this as well, that I think it's rapidly going the culture is rapidly leaving religion as a whole, and this field seems to be doing even more of that. So again, if you finding a therapist that holds your same faith, this is where we got to do a little bit of homework even before we step in the door, if that's really important for you. But even if they don't share your faith, there's a difference between, okay, prayer is important for you, so how can we incorporate that into your treatment plan or something like that? And like, oh, you believe in a God, like what's wrong with you? I don't think you would get that, but you
Big
could.
difference. Yeah.
You could.
Okay. Oh, I appreciate you saying that. And like you said, it dives into a little bit more of the political field, but at least it's just a good insight to know as you're going in that if you lead with, my faith is important to me. And if the counselor reciprocates that and said, okay, great. And then their homework is kind of geared towards your action of faith, that would be an important step to lead with.
Yes.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Johnny, what can our audience, now that we've had a little background of who we would like to hire and if we need to continue counseling or start up counseling, we know what to research a little bit better. How would you encourage our audience to be actively engaged in their mental health while still keeping it faith-based?
It's something that we all need to be aware of, and this, before I even get into this, the first step is to realize you are not above having some type of mental health issue.
Mm,
I'm a counselor and I have to keep my kind of my mood in check and everything. I think that's important as a Christian, just to check in that way. So first is just realizing that, yeah, you're not, just because you're a Christian doesn't mean that you can't struggle with these things. Some active things, and I encourage this for anybody that I see, whether they're Christian or not, is for your mental health. you have to be moving. Like you have to be doing some form of exercise. I don't care if you go to the gym every day and like you're doing an intense workout, or if you're taking a walk down the block and back. Like you have to do something. More often the better. That there's just so much research behind the link between exercise and your mental health. So don't, this is another thing where I go back into with counseling. Don't think that me just going to the counselor, that's just going to fix everything. Like even if you're going to counseling, you still need to be moving. Like that's just, I think God made us that way for a reason. So we need to be exercising our bodies. And along with this, we need to have relationships. Another thing that God created us this way. I'm pretty introverted myself. I enjoy alone time and being able to just have some quiet, but don't use an excuse. I say this as a fellow introvert to say, well, I don't need people. No, you do. We all need people. And this can even be, there's some fun workarounds with this. Like if you, maybe your friends are all gone or whatever it may be, even going to a coffee shop and there just being people around you. Like you have to have people around us and try to build more relationships. You don't have to be best friends with everybody you come across. But you can't do this alone. We're not built to do life alone.
That's so true. And so much, it's just so, I am an introvert as well, believe it or not. But I think if we are more intentional about our relationships, and it's the teeniest, tiniest things, and chances are the majority of them are free, just a much fuller life. Because when you're in relationship with people, I think they can also lovingly, with truth and grace, call out like, hey, you haven't been yourself. Are you okay? And it may lead into counseling, or it may just lead into a really good, deep friendship talk. And so both are valid. So I love that advice, is that having relationships. And the moving, Johnny, I joke all the time that the reason I run is because it's cheaper than therapy. Like, I always say it's cheaper than therapy and alcohol. So I just hit the gravel road running. I love that. And also calling out those that, we all go through those phases where we're like, I'm above that. No, we're not. Again, in relationships, someone would say, it's probably not a bad idea to talk to somebody about this, including me, but let's just talk about this. I love it. Those are great, great, great takeaways here, Johnny. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast and helping us navigate this big, gigantic world of mental health. I mean, we wouldn't even have put those two words together for a long time. And when people would say them, I kind of have a feeling we kind of rolled our eyes. We're like, yeah, whatever. And now we're hyper attuned to no. We do need to prioritize our mental health and where we're getting counseling or therapy, and the relationships that we're in and what kind of counsel we're seeking. So I think it is important to re-listen to this episode, listen to the different levels that you can pursue, and then leading in the session with, this is important to me, leading with your values. I also loved, Johnny, that you told us the three things to know if we are in counseling is, do you feel comfortable? That's just, seems like a no-brainer, but you should probably ask yourself that. Do you feel that you're being heard? And then also, are your values being attacked or not? So those are just great little takeaways here. Johnny, how would you encourage our encouragers today?
Yeah, I think that one, just realizing that while there is so much just hurt and bad things going on in the world, I totally get that. At the same time, be focused on something that's good. And these little small things of when, I'll give you an example in my life, my son today, who's just about to be 6 months old, ate his first peanut butter, and to see his little face like, whoa, what is this stuff? It was so fun. And just taking those small moments, even if the rest of your day was bad, take that small moment and thank God for it. Like God placed that in your life for a reason. Don't just be focused on what's going wrong.
Oh, yeah. And it's easy to do that because it's more provocative to have what's going wrong rather than what's joyful and what's good. Oh, that's good. That's a great encouragement. Okay, encouragers, we will put all of Johnny's resources in our show notes here as well, so that you can go to his website and gather any of those resources that you would like as you're on the pursuit of making your mental health better. Until next time, encouragers, we got this because he's got us. Thanks so much for tuning in. If the Encourager podcast has helped or encouraged you in any way, please subscribe to the show and leave a 5-star review. And then help us spread the message of encouragement and hope by sharing the podcast with others. Until next time, Encouragers, we got this.